Your camera time, Mendrix. Get the sweep going. Here we go. Game number 3. This is definitely a game to watch, not game of the day, but we're going to call it close, as Lynx will be taking on Abyss Academy for week number 5. Abyss Academy, we know that in 7.14, that's a great band to start off with. Sora has played the ribbon. We know that in 7.14, there are different priorities. Let's see if the 80 carries are up to date and will prioritize Jhin.
Yeah, I think that KO is somebody who definitely can. He's played, showcased a lot of Jhin in the past.
Yep.
It's not necessarily just a Jhin, it's pretty much anybody who can use a Duskblade right now. So I also hope that Frey goes back towards that. And you're going to be wondering, okay, so you have Jhin in the bottom lane potentially. You have Frey on an assassin AD in the mid lane. Where's your magic damage going to come from? Well, Swathe. He can most certainly play something like an Elise. And you've also got Paprise in the top lane. If all else fails, just send him back on the Maokai. He can still teamfight on that beast.
I mean, it would come back to comfort. It would come back to champions that played in the past exceptionally well. Zed has been banned. We start talking about assassins in the mid lane, and we talk about how Frey is originally an assassin player. So it's good that Lynx are taking this pick and ban phase to the next level, whereas we saw our teams before kind of pull back and be like, yes, these are the generic bans. This looks a lot more specialized, as Sully will lose his Nidalee as well.
Yeah, all of these are pretty much targeted bans. I wouldn't say that any of these are typical, because if you take a look over at what is taken away, it's all early game from Lynx. Yeah. It's early game, and it's people who could utilize Duskblade. What a surprise! All of them are going to be taken off. It means that Abyss won't have free reign early on in the game, and it also means that the top lane is going to be heavily destabilized in terms of the way that they can play. So what happens is Paprise is going to be left behind on somebody who has a mid to late game power spike, and that gives Lynx all of the opportunity in order to just take those objectives.
Well, we're seeing better. We're going to see better quality of gameplay here, you'd have to think, because these are our top tier teams, or at least the higher division. And we will see the Riven, Fiora, and the Nidalee to cap the bans for Abyss Academy. Jace was the final ban for Lynx, as well as the Zed and Renekton. So Paprise not going to have that champion in Renekton this time, but the Sejuani has been locked in for the 3rd game in a row. And it looks like PVA will go with what he loves.
Yeah, once again, it's going to be the Ashe. Not really a Duskblade user. Let's just get off that topic altogether. Still does pretty much everything that we need. You know, it's the ultimate. That's really what he's known for. And it's always the silent but deadly Ashe that we think of when we think of PVA. Because like we mentioned with the last one, it's not that Ashe outputs a whole lot of DPS, it's the fact that people really don't give her a lot of respect because she falls off a lot to the late game. She's got the arrow and she's got not much else, and that really gives her a lot of free reign to roam. So it's a very specialized character when it comes to PvA. He plays it a lot differently from other players in the sense that other players will still get focused down regardless, but this Ashe, expect to see this as one of the last hits.
And expect to see this as another great game for PVA if he can get ahead. But you see the Brom come through for Scream, and that bottom lane has just set up the ice-cold winter. Because as we know, winter is here. No spoilers, don't worry. I have seen the first episode, and it was great. PVA was a big Brom player as well, and it's great to see that he's going to be playing with a support like the Brom. Taric, again. Second time tonight we're seeing Taric. Kuhn has picked that one up, so I guess the buffs make a big difference. And Frey will get his Orianna.
And you just got to give a whole lot of praise over to Kuhn. I mean, this guy went from exclusively a shield and heal support into this frontline tankiness that also helps his team out. I mean, Taric is really the best of both worlds. Mendrix already mentioned the huge buff that goes onto him where you get pretty much 2 to 3 rotations of your passive almost instantly. So all of that works really well towards him. Another huge factor is the fact that he could build Thornmail, and that works extremely well on this Taric. So all in all, it's a character that provides both comfort and utility. Now when you go into the mid to late game, you've got him, and you've also got a Sejuani, somebody whose passive pretty much means that you take no damage. That's going to be one damn beefy frontline.
And we're really rising back into the tank meta, and you talk about Kuhn has had versatility on his supports in the past, even picking up something like a Trundle. So this guy is no stranger to playing by the meta or outside of it. Right now, we see that Kha'Zix was locked in for Sully, and we come into the second ban phase. Lynx will be banning away the Tristana and KO's Varus as well, so specifically targeting that 80 carry pool. What else works with the Taric? I feel like Kalista.
Yes, most definitely. I was just about to say, Kalista, he played it last week. It's open right now.
Really
it works really well into the Varus. I mean, it works really well with the Taric, I should say. Sorry, got dazzled by him.
I called you
on the
Jesus
screen.
and you just let me down straight away. I was like looking at you with all. I was
Thank you.
Oh wow.
I'll walk all the way across the river. But anyway, yeah. So you've got the Taric as well. Yeah. And it's just such a great combination. I don't know why you banned away the Varus. I mean, you could have put him on the Varus, and honestly, that would have been a worse pick for him than the Callisto.
Well, I think, you know, KO in the past has shown multiple games of Varus, so maybe going for that comfort side, but yeah, as you said, taking away those last 2 bans and putting them towards something that KO doesn't really have to play here may be vital for Abyss Academy's success. And we see the Jax and the Syndra is the response, and Amital just locks in the Echo as a priority. Maybe they go the Xayah, however. Maybe they just pick something that has a bit more success. KO, yeah.
Well, he has a lot of free reign to do so, because if you have the Taric ultimate on you, what it means is that you have about 3 seconds to set down all of your feathers, make sure that your E can get the maximum effect possible. So yeah, anybody who takes a little bit of time to set up, like for instance a Tristana, who was unfortunately banned away, a Twitch, a Callista, or a Xayah, they all work excellently with Taric.
Okay, so now the last pick, and it looks like it will be the Camille, unless they go for something else. I mean, Jack's taken away, and a specific ban for something that can deal with the Camille. Now how do you deal with it? How do you put something in that top lane against a champion that can go snowball heavy?
You see, the deal with Camille is you never ask that question, because she could just always just farm up, right? You wait until you get onto turret if it's an oppressive matchup, and you just wait until you get all of those. J4 is still open, I believe, so yeah, you could just go for that and have a very neutral top lane. Camille's real problem is when she gets into the mid to late game, because it's not, did I beat her in lane? It's, how the hell do I deal with her jumping onto my AD carry and knocking everybody back? You've got a Braum who could jump back onto the Ashe, so you've got that, but that's pretty much it. Everything else, there's not a whole lot of disengage, so it's still going to be really risky, and once again, you got to say, Lynx might have outdrafted them in the early to mid game when it comes to objective control and maybe in the team fights, but the later on this game goes, Abyss Academy, if they ever get a 5v5, a straight 5v5, or even a pick, the Lynx is going to be a lot of trouble.
And Abyss Academy with that Taric ultimate mean they can make these ready engages and just fall back and say, we're good for now, let's try again later. So Lynx, if they delay out this game or they can't close it down, could be big trouble as we do move into Game 3. Abyss Academy versus Lynx Esports. These last 2 games of the night are going to be big ones, as we see potentially our top 4 teams going head-to-head for week number 5.
And it almost looks like a checkmate checking down from both of these 2 rosters, because we already mentioned it before we even got into Champ Select. Lynx like to play the early game. They like to play the controlled objective game, and their team composition allows them to do it. Ashe is a one-item spiker. Make sure that you gank mid. Bring Echo down as well, somebody who can dive bot a lot. I mean, we already saw it last week. The exact same plan was executed. If you manage to get down that first turret, it unlocks the Ashe to use her arrow in pretty much every other lane, and it works out so well for Lynx. Over on the other side, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody on the side of Abyss Academy who has an early game bridge. They're all waiting towards the mid to late game, and that's where Lynx is trying to exploit them.
Well, Lynx, I mean, not the most experienced comp. When you put it up against Abyss Academy, can they exploit it, though? Can they? Well, do they actually know where the weaknesses lie? You'd have to think yes. You'd have to think that in their drafting, they go, this is how we lock down Abyss Academy. This is how we exploit their composition. If Abyss Academy, however, to just play this out, you can see all the advantages that they hold. So Sulik going to be working his way around this map early portions, and there is a potential for Lynx to snowball.
Under normal circumstances, you'd have to say, yeah, Lynx would probably have to play towards Abyss's weaknesses, but in this one in specific, you wouldn't even need to say that. Because you take a look at the way that they scale, they've got all the early game. As soon as Sully decides to go for either a Dragon or an early Rift Herald, both of which do get a huge buff for Sully simply because he gets the isolation damage onto both of them, then it's going to be really good for Lynx, because Aminal, he can just roam down, he can help with that. Sora, he can teleport if need be, and there's not going to be a whole lot of response on the other side.
You see this, Abyss Academy pretty much every week since these changes come through have had that red leash. Lynx Academy, it means that
Lynx
KO, sorry, yes, I keep calling them Lynx Academy. It'll pass. KO and Kun lose a whole wave. But in terms of their team composition, we know that's going to be okay. Swayth will get an early level 2 and potentially try and match the pressure that Sully will give out.
Yeah, but it's not going to be that easy, because Sejuani, yeah, a whole lot of tank junglers, they got buffed because of the Barmy Cinder, but it's still 900 gold. You know how much that is? That's 8 camps plus the passive gold generation. So that's still going to be a really long time for Swayth either way that you spin it, and Sully's going to have the advantage all the way until then.
Sully will pick up level 3 and begins his invade. A ward has been dropped on the blue buff, and Swayth, I believe, will be spotted out. Sully just starts it up. Abyss Academy's jungler moves up into the top side of the map. Where's he going?
Not too certain. I mean,
drops a ward.
Sully should be pretty confident that he can do this. Swayth knows, but It's going to be a smite war.
There's no smite battle. Arctic Assault goes into Sully. He's very low, doesn't have enough mana. Red buff on both of these junglers. One more E there. He finds it, stuns him, and says, get off my turf, Sully. Meanwhile, on the top lane, Sora is trading very well with Paprise. Swathe is now here. Is this a mistake by the Dragon Flag Jarvan? Well, we like to think so, as Hookshot not available, so Sora will get very low.
No, it's fine. Sora was just trying to block up Paprise from joining the 2v2 because all in all, Camille provides a whole lot more than Jarvan does going into it. He actually started his W first and then went for his Hookshot second, which means that he would have got a whole lot of pressure down if there was a 2v2. So very smart from Sora, and the natural response from Swathe means that Sora just walks out.
Frey was able to get Orianna. This is something I want to talk about because you look at how his performance with Orianna has gone in the past, and you say, well, you say very well. It's a champion that Frey has shown expertise on. And I am looking for him to perform. I am looking for him to show us that he is potentially one of the best mid laners in the OCS for this split. Amital had a fantastic last week. He stole a Baron on Echo. Like, when do you say that? At 20-something minutes, he stole a Baron. It was in one of our highlight plays. Now, how do you perform against someone like Frey, someone who is not as good as Hayri?
Well, the playstyle against both Frey and Orianna, coincidentally, they're both the same thing in this game, is simply just roam. Echo does it so well, Orianna does it so poorly, that if she tries to match you, you can just 1v1 her and kill her. And Amital, he knows how to gank his side lanes, he knows how to gank bot especially, and with all of the CC from an Ashe, from a Braum as well, and the burst coming out from a Kha'Zix, surely they should be able to do some good work down there early on.
There's no real CS advantages across the map, but things going smoothly for both sides. Apart from Sully and Swathe meeting in the jungle, it has been a slow, very slow start again. That tilts me. Okay, good on you, KO. Picks up some CS. Wait.
Yep.
There we go. Good form. We're in good form down the bottom lane.
Yep.
Just, I've seen Zaya's miss some CS, and maybe I'm just thinking about myself.
No, it's just the auto attack animation. On the other side, PVA, he doesn't miss quite as much. So he's going to be a noticeable little lead ahead. And that's in no small part due to the fact that Braum has Winter's Bite. There's not a whole lot of range that comes out from Kuden. You need to walk up beforehand, and it's massively telegraphed. So the lane advantage naturally, of course, goes over to Lynx.
But of course, I mean, PVA did lead by 6 CS at the start, and the fact that KO has caught up and has kind of pushed Scream and PVA back to their own turret is something that we have expected of this bottom lane, but is now very apparent to us. Scream and PVA only coming in last week, so I guess you could say they're fresh, taking over Kedu and Sheng Xuan. This bottom lane has shown a lot of synergy, and Scream has had a bit of experience before, as well as PVA, but now is their time to shine. Now, on a team that is rising like Lynx and has the opportunity to make top 4, you take down Abyss Academy here, and you put yourself at the level, if not above, Sin Academy and Legacy Genesis.
Yeah, and that synergy is really the name of the game, because these two players definitely do have it. I mean, if you're going to say that they're still fresh to the league, you have to spell it with a PH, because they've just been popping off.
Nice, I like that. Bit of, I was going to say chemistry. That's not chemistry. It has nothing to do with chemistry.
It's
maybe
physics.
Grammar. Yeah, oh, yeah,
lovely.
Lovely. All right. It's going to be a very slow start. So it's methodical, but it is, I guess, cleaner. As we see potentially a better game of League of Legends coming through today. Sully is going to be in his own jungle. There's not going to be an evade just yet, but Swathe is lingering in this topside river with Paprise dropping a ward in the try.
This is extremely smart, because Swathe knows that the early game definitely does belong to Sully, so what does he do? He tries to drastically try to help his lanes out as much as possible. Now, the natural place to go is always top lane, because when Pappy gets a little bit of a lead, you know that he becomes a menace. When the team fights come in, it just gives them a little bit of extra security, especially in terms of tankiness, to get into the backline as a carry, like for instance Camille can do. So it's very smart that Swathe hangs around the top side. When you take a look at the rest of the map, there's not going to be a whole lot of scaling with the exception of Amital, but Amital is always in that situation which he wants to move out of that lane. So yeah, while you can get him a lead, you have to expect that it's because he moves elsewhere, not because he stays in his lane.
Frey still pushing up, going to try and force Amital back, but he'll be okay for now. Deep vision control secured by Kuden as he just walks up through that blue, and the first dragon is going to be Mountain, so you can see how Abyss are approaching it. Abyss Academy are just holding, fine, but Lynx not making any plays in the early game. You have to be worried if it gets to this 20-minute mark and it is still this same pace of game.
Yeah, I think the one downside of Lynx this early game is the fact that they're playing with nameplates on. You definitely need to be playing it off, especially against such a formidable foe like Abyss Academy. You don't want to be blindsided by their raw prowess and ability. You rather just want to be able to play your own game like Mendrix and I mentioned before this game started. So the fact that they haven't, the fact that Sully has played so passive along with Amidal, the fact that they haven't roam bot, roam top, try to get an advantage somewhere, slowly, if they continue doing this, it's going to go towards Abyss's favor.
Frey's just being jumped on, and we talk about early game pressure now. Here it is,
Oh,
Frey.
no.
Not often you see him miss a shockwave, but there it is.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a little bit of a trade coming out from Echo, but Frey interprets an all-in, and it just doesn't work for him. But speaking of all-ins.
Yeah, Sora does have ultimate cataclysms there. Hextech ultimatum, great flash out from Paprise, will live. You could say it was a great play, but close calls up in this top.
So unfortunately, you could see the execution. Nope, there's going to be a fight.
No lethality built just yet. Enchanted Crystal Arrow almost hit. It was on mark, though. So Swaith gets out as well.
It was aimed for Paprise, but it could have incidentally hit Swaith there. I think the whole story of that was simply the fact that Sora knew what to do in that situation. And in the bottom lane, action doesn't stop.
Arrow's not available, but here we go. Concussive blows, ultimate use, a Feather Storm, bring it back in with a Blade Caller to root him on down. PVA, first blood is the birth from KO. Makes its mark.
And that was what we were talking about this bot lane. The fact that Kuden gets this, but Amidal's here.
Parallel Convergence Flash on top of KO. He's trying to kite it on back. Kuden gives him a heal, but Tarek can't really help much out because he has no mana. Both of them very low. The Dazzle to help. KO gets another kill and Amidal. Massive misplay as we go back into the top lane. Arctic Assault. Sully, one more hit. The E, the Flash, necessary, but Swaith doesn't have it. He gets stunned up, and Sora is there for emotional backing.
All right, where do we start with that one? Okay, let's start in the bottom side and go in reverse order. So the fact that Kuden, the fact that Amidal was stunned up in the last portion of that fight means that he couldn't use his ultimate Chrono Break to get out of that place, and ultimately he pays the price of roaming down bot side. So that's what we wanted to see. In theory, in execution, unfortunately didn't work out for his team. Another huge thing was the fact that PVA and Scream, they just weren't in sync, especially not when KO let down all of those feathers. How did KO get down all of those feathers? Because of security that Kuden gives him.
But now KO has 2 kills. This is a problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
This is yeah, you've got to think about it. You got a Xayah with 2 kills early game. You look at how she can play closed off team fights, how she can get free and be an absolute heavy damage dealer.
Yep. She's got the early game. She's got the damage. And the fact that Lynx have drafted to the early game and want to play to the early game and unfortunately have not hit their mark with the early game, now that can be reflected in the bottom lane, is a real worry for them. Because all of a sudden, the Dragon taking and the Herald taking capabilities of Sully have gone down massively. But speaking of going down, they're looking for something in the bottom lane.
Yeah, they understand again. Here we go. That's going to be the ultimate. The collateral damage is down.
Here we go.
Crystal Arrow lands on KO. The ultimate to come through. Glimmering with hope is Tarek right now, and KO will survive with the help of Kuden. Sully makes his mark bottom, but it is not enough.
I mean, you got to take a look at Kuden's pick in the Tarek and just say that's ultimately a very smart pick for the entire team against Lynx. Because what it means is that Lynx cannot roam down onto the bottom side. They should be looking onto the top side. You saw the amount of burst that Sora has on Paprise. This is a good matchup for J4. J4 can pretty much burst Camille down to about 2/3 to about a half of Camille's health in just one combo alone, without any auto attacks, without his passive. So what it means is if 2 members go top in the form of Sully and in the form of Middle, that could be a dead Camille over and over again. Extremely vulnerable. That's somewhere that they should be looking, rather than the bottom side with the Tarek.
Amidal trying to be everywhere with Sully, and they are now. They're worried because KO looks unkillable. It looks like every situation can be easily diffused. He has found his gold lead. He's found his CS lead. Abyss Academy, suddenly their win condition continues to look through the eyes of this bottom lane, who are surviving, who are getting early game presence when really they shouldn't. And this is another experience. There's the ultimate again. Ultimate the Feather Storm. One more auto attack if necessary. KO very close, but it will force PVA out of lane.
Yeah, it forces them out. It means that they can get a whole lot of chip damage, potentially even get this turret, simply because nobody's coming to defend. And speaking about the win condition, this has always been Abyss's win condition, because we were talking about how on 7-13 and on 7-14, teams should be playing throughout the bottom side. The bottom side helps out massively as they do manage to actually get this turret first, very early on, at 13 minutes in the game, naturally as a 2v2 unit. what it means is that if there was ever a fight down onto the bottom side, Abyss Academy are naturally going to be ahead in that instance. And it means that Lynx need to give up that side. They should never have been playing that side ever since KO got that first blood. And they should just be playing around the other side of the map.
2k gold, Preacher. Not looking great for Lynx in this early game. And Lynx have one job to do. That is to make sure Sully is kind of everywhere. But he's been, in essence, nowhere, as Swathe has had as much, if not more, impact than this Kha'Zix.
Completely agree.
You can see the gold lead as well. 500 is the difference. No, that's not. That's 300 as my eyes see me. But Swathe, it's still small amounts. It's petty change, if you would. But it is enough. The bottom lane, that's where the problem lies. It's 1,200 gold. And that's what's making up a large proportion of that gold lead. Sully now trying to hurt Papyrus top, but he has the hookshot. He has such an easy way of getting out.
Yeah, he does. I think this is going to be really dangerous. Watch out for Jarvan's ultimate.
Okay, they're looking for the burst. Maybe it's a quicker way. Cataclysm is available. Papyrus takes the smart move and backs off.
Yeah, that was really strange. I mean, I would have expected Sora to use it a little bit earlier. It can cancel Camille's hookshot if you use it at the correct time, but unfortunately they don't pull the trigger. And all they get is a turret for it. But frankly speaking, they need to be getting a little bit more. They've already lost first ring. Nice flash.
Yeah, flash away. PVA was sitting mid now. Abyss Academy force on up as a 3-man unit. They start sieging up. The wave clear is there, however, and Lynx will hold that turret and maybe get one up top.
Yeah, realistically, this is just Abyss Academy getting the inside track on all of these rotations because they got the top, because they got the bot turret down so much faster than top naturally got its turret down. It means that Xayah could rotate into the mid lane, and that's going to be really painful going over for Lynx because Lynx realistically should have got the top turret at more or less the same time that Abyss Academy got the bot lane turret, but because they didn't, because Sully didn't put enough of an emphasis on the top side, they lose out so much.
And it's mistakes like that that Abyss Academy can capitalize on. Like, we've seen countless teams fall to them because Abyss are always one step ahead. And they do get the Mountain Drake, so that is picked up. It's a nice follow-through from Lynx if you consider getting the Rift Herald. Papyrus has found them. Sully going to get locked up. 0 mana. There's a Hextech ultimatum. He's been stunned up. Ultimate from Brom as well. Might find the trade as the Taracold. Papyrus misses the flash. Taracold just in time. Jumping on over. Swathe has the E. He's going to get frozen down and stunned, and Papyrus will live and pick up a kill.
All right, so because of their hesitancy to gank the top side, because of their hesitancy to put down Papyrus, he is now actually ahead in this lane. And once again, it all goes down to the fact that the priority in the early game from Lynx was wrong. The fact that they didn't get Sora that far ahead in the early game is now paying twofold, threefold, and it's about to pay even more.
And a turret goes down. It's a response. It's Lynx only just trading off. Yes, it may be 2 turrets all, and it may be Lynx finally opening up the map, but if you could say too little too late, you would. If you'd say anything else, you'd say that Lynx now need to start making plays with those double teleports because Amidal isn't following up on these plays. There was a big play around Rift Herald there, and Amidal, yes, he picked the turret. Maybe structures feel better for them at the moment, but there was no follow-up. It could have been a great follow-up. Could have been an equalizer by Lynx.
Yeah, there was none. And they definitely had the opportunity to do so. So what they need to do right now is they need to rotate the bottom lane of Lynx into either top or bot and make sure that the teleports are down onto the other side. So Sully can join in, the double TP can join in, and all of these could potentially be set up to be really good fights for them. I say could be simply because of the fact that Frey would naturally be late to every single rotation.
Yep.
And they could still play it out as 4v5, which is their advantage.
Frey will pick up this blue buff and move his way to a side lane just to farm up. Delaying is the specialty of Abyss Academy, and it doesn't matter how many times we say that, you're going to start seeing it very soon. Papyrus being comfortable against this J4, although 40 CS down, having that kill again will just hold that gold at a nice neck and neck.
Yeah. It just allows him to have so much room to breathe on this Camille, which we were always talking about going into the mid and late game. If he jumps onto the Ashe, what exactly are you going to do? And yeah, sure, you've got the Cataclysm from a Jarvan. Jarvan's 0-1. Yeah, sure, you've got the stand behind me on Scream. Scream is barely tanky enough to do anything. He's barely completed any item. He's got Moby boots. So none of these people can really defend PVA against Papyrus, and that's really dangerous going into this.
KO there has to use the Feather Storm. Stunned on up. Sully disappears off Summoner's Rift. Abyss Academy, this is their fight right now. Hextech ultimatum. pops the ultimate. It's Kun going to save a life as Sora. The Cataclysm is wasted. Flash over the wall. Kun, you're a ballsy, Tarek, and I don't mean to imply that a little bit too early, but Abyss Academy will still pick up one with Sully being down.
So you got to ask the question, PVA, what were you doing? He shoots out the ultimate and engages the fight for his team when it's a 5-man unit of Abyss Academy. Forget every other circumstance. It's Abyss Academy grouping up as a 5-man. That's something that you never want to play towards because it's always their strength. Now he engages a fight that his team never wanted. They lose 1 kill. They lose the turret.
And they lost so much pressure that goes along with it. 3,000 gold, and Abyss Academy going to reap this top side of the jungle. Make sure Lynx have nothing to catch on up. Red buff is included. Baron's up in 130. Lynx did pick up the Rift Herald, but Sora has yet to use it. I mean, probably just going to have to drop it bot before it expires.
Yeah, I mean, time's ticking, and there's a whole lot of ground for that Rift Herald to cover, so I doubt it'll even get the charge off onto that turret before it gets taken down by probably just Paprise alone. That's the one downside of Lynx this game, the fact that they haven't assigned the lanes correctly. They tried to move PVA into the mid lane, use his ultimate in order to start a 4v5. Whoops, surprise, everybody from Abyss was actually in the mid lane. You should have been on the top side because that would have got a much better result. Double TP, of course, available as well. And you got to feel going 20 minutes into this game that maybe the double TP is no longer valid from this team because even if it is a 4v5, Abyss Academy are pretty ahead in this situation.
Yeah, maybe Lynx just have to use the TP as a response rather than to start something off. It will actually get the charge, so that is a good bit of damage, better than we would have thought. It doesn't even go to half, however, so Abyss Academy, they're going to be fine with that turret. And it was Sora dropping that just in the nick of time. Like we said, his teleport's available, but he is actually a level ahead. Whether he can make advantage of this, not too sure. Paprise's TP will be down. But the 1v1, I think, is what I'm more concerned about. Trinity Force has been picked up for Paprise, and Sora doesn't even have his first item.
Oh, this is extremely dangerous for Sora. I mean, I don't think he has any right to be pushed up in that circumstance. If Swait was there, more or less he'd just be dead. Fortunate for him, he's not. So let's have a check-in with how the scaling's going from Lynx's side. At the current moment, nope.
No. Your check-in doesn't exist right now. Doors up. That means nuts out. Okay.
He's locked me out of my hotel room. No, I'm checking in. I'm checking in, and I'm going to take a look at who exactly can deal with KO in this instance. You got to take a look at Sully, and you got to take a look at Amador. Both of them are 0-1 right now. Unfortunately, they haven't reached their power spikes. Amador has got sort of a semi-power spike in the Sheen as well as the as well as the Proto Belt, but it's too little too late because at this point, if KO ever gets aggressed on, nobody needs a peel for him. Kuden can just use a heal and an ultimate. That's going to top him up to safety, and he always has the ultimate for himself, so Sora is not somebody who can naturally dive in. He needs to be protecting his backline, and that puts a lot of stress on Lynx's front-to-back composition.
Lynx have had a stressful game so far. KO walking through blind. It will actually just get caught out. Here comes the Savior and Grace. Rooted down again. Sora has to run for the hills, and Swait back in time. This Mountain Drake is available for Abyss Academy. Take this. It is going to be double Mountain. But do they give up top lane turret for it?
Yeah, of course you would. It's one turret for a dragon. You'd give that up any day of the week because this Mountain Drake enables you to take so many from this point onwards as opposed to the immediate gold that Lynx get. Take a look at the gold close as soon as this turret falls. Bam, it's still 2k advantage over to Abyss Academy, so they had the room to do this. It means that regardless of what, you're simply trading your power spike for a much later one.
And you are trading the ability for Abyss Academy to have those late game sieges. This is not good. KO is just, look at this, he's already a monster. Sora's scared to go 1v1. He knows that the rest of Abyss Academy are nearby, and he knows that Swait has been able to rotate quicker than Sully. Baron is now live. They're positioning around it, and the vision control is working so much in Abyss's favor.
And that should realistically never happen. An ADC outscaling a mid-game 2-item power spike soon to be Jarvan? Nah, that's just unheard of. So the fact that KO has so much gold in order to do this, you got to really praise, first of all, the way that they played in the early game, the way that they played around the bottom side, and second of all, once again, unfortunately, we hate to sound like broken records, but the fact that Lynx, unfortunately, couldn't assign the early game potential from the early game carries in Sully and Amador to the correct place, the correct time.
I mean, the Nidalee was banned, and you could really argue that in this composition that Sully's Nidalee would have been so much better. This is a one-on-one that we have kind of seen all game, and of course Paprise, yeah, there's a Cataclysm.
Okay. I mean, it did the damage.
I mean, okay,
It literally did everything that Sora wanted it to do, which was damage. And
but
unfortunately, no, it's just too little too late. It gives him a little bit of room to push, but take a look. He's too scared. Speaking of scared.
Freight misses a parallel.
Oh, it hits!
Oh, that's Amidal running for his life. Going to send out the time one. It will slow, but it's going to be the ultimate down. Frey also used the heal in that situation. It's a summoner for ultimate. I guess that's worse for Amidal.
It's most definitely worth. But looking at the way that these two mid laners scale, Echo really needs to get on the board right now. He needs to be able to find a skirmish. It's not a 5v5. And he needs to do it pretty much within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Because if he doesn't, Frey's matching him on CS. Frey's doing very well for himself. Hasn't died this game. Speaking of which, Paprise.
Yeah, doing half health. Sully does take an ultimate there. Two-man Dragon Flag and Channel Crystal Arrow will hit the wrong target, but the damage goes down, and Paprise will not find Sully as a response. 1 kill for Lynx.
All right, Lynx are back on the board, baby. They have a good... They don't have a particularly good chance, but it's the start of a good thing that could potentially snowball. Speaking of which, KO.
Yeah, exhausted down. Is it really enough? KO still flashes forward. Glacial Fisher to lock him on down, and KO slow, but still roots up Scream. Ultimate from Kuden. He forces a second flash. KO is going nuts. It's like, hell yeah, boys, it's me or the world. And right now, Amidal says, get the heck off me. Shut down. Cataclysm locked on down. A shockwave that's big enough, but Chrono breaks away, so it'll only take down Sora. Amatul run for the hills. Amidal goes back in. Swathe will be locked down, but a double kill. Unexpected from the Sejuani. As the Kha'Zix runs, goes back in. Great Duke. Oh, Sully outplays. Uses the ultimate again, but Paprise is here.
Oh, no.
Hextech ultimate, a messy fight. But I think Lynx lost it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Lynx shouldn't have taken that from the very start all the way until now. Pretty much what happened was the fact that Scream got picked out because PVA had to move back. What happened after PVA moved back? He literally backed to base. And then everybody else on Lynx was fighting without their Ashe, without their ADC. And yeah, I'm known for saying that Ashe is an ultimate and not much else, but come on, you sort of have need to have a little bit more damage than just that. So this is really what forces him out. PVA gets extremely low, Scream gets caught out at this point onwards, and the PVA starts to back at this point when there's a TP coming forward from Jarvan. No more damage comes out of this Ashe. She needs to go back to base. Perfectly timed ultimate from Kuden. And yeah, it was just a team fight that was lost. There's the back from Ashe, and you're practically fighting without an ADC.
Yeah, of course, no damage to follow through, but very impressive from KO to a certain degree. The rotation from Abyss will kind of even things out, and you can see a double kill for Swathe.
Swathe is going to really get tanked.
Outplayed.
Yeah, Sully did extremely well.
Sully was dead there. There was no way.
He made the best of a bad situation. You got to praise him for that. The fact that he did so well, but we're about to go forward in real time.
Okay. Welcome to real time. How does it feel, Preacher?
I mean, I feel as if I've aged exactly 1 minute and 10 seconds.
I mean, that replay wasn't that long, was it? Is this? Yeah, is this real?
I don't know. Oh. Or is this just a C made of Fanta?
Oh, dude. Ah, nice. Nice. Hang on. I don't think we're allowed to say that. Unless something happens next week that makes us. Oh. No, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying because of that. Don't ask. 26 minutes in. And it is a fantasy of some sorts. Lynx have been pushed behind, but they're continuing to trade off. And I guess it's okay for now, but it's still Abyss's game. It's still a late game, which they have fantasized again about. With an Orianna, with a Camille, with a Xayah. Like, what else doesn't sound good?
I mean, the only upside that you could really give to Lynx is if you're trading even numbers, then it naturally does favor you if you're already behind. Because first and foremost, you get a whole lot of gold for yourself. You close the percentage gold difference. Second of all, there's more or less going to be shutdown potential onto the enemy team. KO got taken down, which is a lot of gold going over to them, but you know, it's very small amounts that we're talking about. And the Baron started.
Yeah, Baron started control ward. Is now going to be placed down, but it's a 3K. Do they go for this? No, screw that. Go back to the Baron. There we go. Don't worry about the bottom. Let's stay up here, observe it. Cheddar Crystal Arrow, Glacial Fisher lockdown. Paprise actually takes down Sora, but doesn't have TP. Swathe goes over the wall, and Baron has stopped for now. Kuden keeping the aggro, but I think it will reset eventually, unless he continues it on. Could be a 50-50, but Sully will get bursted down. They will take one. That is going to be the Sora. Paprise still in the bottom lane. He's going to look for a turret.
And how do you summarize that? Do you summarize that as the biggest team fight in history that amalgamated in nothing, only to save a 1v1 down on the bottom side and allow Paprise to get this advantage? Looks like it's going to be. Sora took a 1v1 into Paprise. Not really sure why. Naturally, you want to back off just to get your TP, but unfortunately, he didn't have his TP timer. Doesn't just lose his life, he loses a turret as well.
This is not great for Lynx as Abyss Academy pick up the turret. TP not available, but they start Baron again. And look at this, Lynx now have to make the steal. 3K, 2K, 1K, go in! They don't steal it away, mismind. Lynx now forcing the fight, however. Ultimate there as there's the Feather Storm to run on through. Frey will pick up Sully. Great Tarek ultimate, keeps them alive. Paprise finally back in. Whoa, uppercut kick with 2 kills. Lynx go down, and Abyss pick the Baron.
Yeah, I think the whole story of this game is simply that Paprise is styling on people, but even before then, the Baron fight, if you jump in which Lynx did, and you don't get anything, then it's extremely risky. Naturally, you only send your jungler to do so, because if he misses the smite battle, well, it's just your jungler dead. But Sora follows as well. PvA is sort of the natural fallout from that, and yeah, it's just a whole lot of, it's just bad going to worse for Lynx.
Yeah, it puts it pretty plainly, and it puts it into perspective of how this 6K gold lead has just jumped and jumped. With members like Sora failing to perform, with people like Paprise just having a great game of bait and decoy. Speak of it. I was going to make a decoy joke. I'm not going to speak of it anymore. Don't know what's going on, but top lane turret will go down too. Abyss Academy with this Baron buff are going to start rolling thunder. And Frey, the man to do it, is just pushing this turret solo. There's no one else here from Abyss, but this is still going to be potentially just a turret taken.
And guess what, Hysterics? I'm going to put on my Prophet hat, and I'm simply going to say it's going to be a 4-1 with Paprise in the bottom lane. He's got TP. If he teleports in, it's going to be the famous Abyss Academy 5-man that we've all known and loved.
And Sora is backing. Looks like he will either force the engage or just come back to defend as that 5-man unit. Paprise can push the wave up. He can do whatever he wants. He's level 16. He's caught up in levels. He's catching up in CS. And at this point, it does not matter. If they do not find the engage, if Lynx do not get anything or at least defend this, past the 30-minute mark, you've got to think it's Abyss's game.
No, yeah, and you got to say that Abyss are playing this extremely smart. Look at that. They just poke when they can, but that's not really their main objective. Is their main objective to chip down turrets? No, not that either. What their main objective is to buy a lot of space for Paprise in order to split push onto the bottom side, because Camille is pretty much at her strongest right now. She can go into Sora. We've already seen the solo kills happen over and over again. And if you give him that space, if you give him enough time without forcing the issue, then they could just do so much by himself.
Gold is continuing to skyrocket with Abyss Academy sieging up this top lane inhibitor turret. Once this goes down, the base will be broken. Paprise moving across to where Sora is, and that's the mid lane, with the bottom lane slowly pushing up. Now, this is Camille's point. This is it. This is like when Camille starts going nuts.
Yep. Take a look at this. They didn't need the siege. They could do it anyway with Baron.
They're going to jump right underneath this turret. The full-on engage as they take him out. Shockwave doesn't hit because Frey's already dead. Chrono Break on top of one member. Paprise still lives, however, and he's forcing out Sora. That turret goes down. Abyss Academy jumping into base. They flash onto Sully. He's frozen shut. Feather Storm, Crow Storm, whatever you want to call it. It's going to take 2 members down. Paprise to follow through. The inhibitor as well. 3 will live, but Lynx Academy lose their base.
Well, it's not just their base. Take a look at this. They don't just lose that, they lose the fight, and you gotta say, this is all with Abyss getting much more than what they should have got simply because of the Baron. They get the free push with the Baron minions to the point where they can actually siege that top lane turret. Under normal circumstances without that Baron, their only job was to keep everybody else away from Paprise. So the fact that they get that freedom and they actually push it into an objective, into an inhibitor as well, is massive. Yeah,
they go on to KO and Immortal, very ambitious. We'll have to Chrono Break out, and another inhibitor is on the list, and the list is slowly being ticked off. Methodical, easy plays for Abyss Academy.
Yeah, and Abyss Academy, once again, playing to their strengths. They miraculously managed to make it to the 30-minute mark. Not only unscathed, but ahead into Lynx of all teams. And this is just a tragedy. You have to go back to the drawing board if you're Lynx, and you got to wonder, what do we do wrong? And then you got to take a look at the early game and say the jungle mid synergy. Are we talking about ganking mid lane? No. We're talking about both of these mobile assassins moving over onto the top side and shutting down Paprise.
And the priority on Sejuani tonight has always kind of been a success point. I guess you would look at Vibes and say, no, you know, he played great as well, but Corvidae didn't really get off the mark. However, the Sejuani pick as an individual unit has been making work. The Warmogs has been a priority into the Gargoyle Stoneplate, and with that Bammy Cinder, there's just so much that Sejuani can output. Ultimate is great. It's so much for Lynx Esports to deal with.
Passive is even better for frontline. So you got to really go once again back to the early game, and you got to say, Sully, where exactly was your job, and why exactly couldn't you execute it going in? He invaded the blue very early on into Swathe. Unfortunately, he didn't have Smite up, so literally he was never going to win that Smite battle because he didn't have Smite. And unfortunately, he didn't recognize it. He went way too greedy. He tried to play the poker game in which your enemy don't know that you don't have Smite, so they could maybe say, oh, maybe I should respect this guy. Swathe is a little bit smarter than that, forces him off that blue, just takes a whole lot of time out of that Kha'Zix.
Sully falling behind means one thing. Look at this. Yeah, that's some Xayah damage for you. Moving into the later game stages, almost at 4 items, which the 4th item is going to be that Bloodthirster. Or maybe go for the Merc. No, I think it is going to be the Bloodthirster. They're so far ahead. This Academy can do what they want when they want. There's a Cloud Drake. You can see they haven't picked that one up. Second was a Mountain. I believe they picked that one up as well. So it's going to be a double Mountain Drake with Abyss Academy Siege. Wait for the damage. Look at this. 1, 2,
Swathe
3,
takes no damage.
and 4. Swathe is diving over the 5-man unit. Tarek will be there. The ultimate pop. Chrono Break already being used. Lynx, this is their last defense. All they can do is cry as a 3-man shockwave will be enough. Feather Storm, bring it all back in, baby. A double kill for Frey. Abyss Academy say we will be at least the second or the best team in the OCS. Swathe gonna die. Fair enough. Sully's gonna leave. And Abyss Academy, they may lose last week, but they're still in beautiful form.
And they played towards their advantages. They love the 5v5. They love the late game. Lynx unfortunately played with the nameplates on. Should have played with them off and played their own game.
If Abyss Academy play like that, yes, they will be one of the top 2 teams. Going against the compositions, Mendrix, Lynx felt like, okay, we are an early game team comp, but we're not forcing anything early.
Yeah, they had the makings of a 1-3-1 that just never got off the ground. And it was because Abyss Academy identified it, were able to get nice leads across the board, and from there they just sort of sat back going, okay, where can we really make something happen? Lynx tried to do it in the top lane, but were never able to find Paprise. KO was absolutely popping off in the bot lane. That allowed them to get 2 Mountain Drakes, and as soon as they got that, it just spelled instant doom for them in that situation, because they started playing around the Baron. It was too hard for them to really make any play off the back of that. And then from there, one sort of team fight that was a bit shaky off the side allowed them to put all the control afterwards.
Yeah, and I just want to really touch on that point. I think we need to refine the 1-3-1. It's not so much that. It's either a 3-1-1 or it's a 1-1-3. So you got to have the 3 portion on either one of the side lanes, simply because Echo has the teleport and Jarvan has the teleport as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't execute that. I specifically remember one time in which they actually sent Ashe into the mid lane, the one lane in which the 3 can't be in, and then they just fell down because of it.
If Lynx Esports, Lynx, I'm sorry, it comes naturally. I've got to add a second title. If Lynx play like that, then yes, we put them as the mid-tier team. But I just don't know where to put them at the moment. What would you guys say? Was it a problem with their drafting? Was it a problem with how they actually initialized it? Because it looked like a stable composition if it could get off the ground.
I think it comes down to the fact that a lot of the big champions were just taken off the board. There was no Nidalee for Sully. There was no Riven for Sora. So all of a sudden they have to sort of default to these other champions that they're maybe not too useful and not used to. And Abyss Academy, they seem just to be a bit more of a crisp team. They have the ability to play these more stable compositions and really excel with it. And they just really gave no breathing room to Lynx once KO managed to get that double kill.
Yeah, but you talk about their comforts and you say a lot of these champions are banned off. Take a look at what they actually do have. They pretty much have the crux of their team from last week resembling in this week as well. You got the Echo in the mid lane, you've got an early game assassin in the Kha'Zix in the jungle, and you got an Ashe in the bottom lane. You can pretty much play identically to the way that you played last week and execute in the exact same fashion. Now, there were a little bit of hiccups. You were into a Tarek lane, so naturally you have to focus the top side, not the bottom side, but you could have still made it work. Unfortunately, they didn't. They tried to bash their head into a brick wall, and this is sort of a team that resembles, you know, one of those child toys where you have a round peg and a square hole, and you're just trying to jam the peg into the hole, and unfortunately it doesn't work.
It's a square.
Yeah, because you're trying to force a playstyle into a situation that just doesn't facilitate it.
And I want to bring this point forward because Lynx pulled the same kind of team composition last week. They pulled a comp that, yes, we can exploit this early, but I feel like against Abyss Academy, who is such an experienced roster and a team that excels in their micro play, to pull that same style on a better team rather than Legacy Genesis, well then it's not going to work because Abyss Academy can read plays a lot better than some of the B-grade teams.
I feel like they were basically saying, you know what, we know we can make 1-3-1 work.
Yep.
Let's default to what we're comfortable with. I know we don't have our major champions on the board as well. And you kind of, it's good to say, yeah, like, well, it doesn't work against Abyss Academy that worked against Legacy Genesis. Even if you were to go for the 4-1, would that have worked against Abyss Academy? At some point in time, you have to realize and go, these guys are the better team. And although they decided to stick to what you could say is an original strategy, that is something that really does work well in most cases, and if you manage to catch a team on a bad day, you can take the win. They didn't catch Abyss Academy in a bad day. These guys can play stably, can play consistently, and that's just basically outplayed them towards the end of the game.
And showing us why Abyss Academy are one of the better teams in the OCS split number 2. However, our next game is very crucial. Like last week, we leave the best till last. It is going to be Outlaws taking on Athletico Esports. These two teams are fighting it out for those top 2 positions. Athletico Esports, a little bit shaky this split, but they're still one of the better teams. Let's see if they can defeat the undefeated Megalomania Underlords, Overlords, whatever you want to call them, of Outlaws, who surprised the heck out of us being the dark horse this split, or if Outlaws will remain undefeated. Game number 4 of OCS is coming up for you in 5 minutes. Do not move a single spot. Don't even get chips. We'll see you in 5.